Hi, boys and girls. We're on lesson 8.8. Oh, yeah, 8.8. I don't know why I wrote 3.8 up here. And we are on page 384. And we are talking about which tool to use that will be the best tool to use when you're measuring different objects. So the three tools we're going to talk about today are a ruler, a yardstick, and a measuring tape. So for the first one, an inch ruler can be used to measure shorter lengths. A yardstick shows 3 feet. It can be used to measure greater lengths and distances. And finally, a measuring tape can be used to measure lengths and distances that are not straight or flat. So for our activity today, we are going to choose the best tool for measuring the real object. And then we are going to measure and record the length or the distance. So for number 1, if we were measuring the length of a book, would we use an inch ruler, a yardstick, or a measuring tape? So I just so happen to have a book with me. If we were going to measure this book, would we use a ruler, a measuring tape, or would we use, and I have to use my wrapping paper as my yardstick, would we use the yardstick? Very good. We would use a ruler. So go ahead and on your paper, you are going to write ruler down for the tool that you would use. And then the length of that, you're going to actually take your ruler if you have one. If not, you can just use mine. And you're going to measure exactly how long your book is. And if you can see, my book is about 10 inches long. So I'm going to write 10 inches on my line. Right here, 10 inches for the length. All right. The next question is the distance around a cup. Now this is challenging. They're not asking for how high it is. They're asking for the distance around the cup. Now I can't wrap this ruler around the cup. So what I have to use is a measuring tape. So this is why we have measuring tapes. So measuring tapes have a lot inside them. Usually have to unlock them. Mine's sticking right now. There we go. And it pulls in and out like this. So I'm going to measure around the cup like this. So I just unraveled it and I'm wrapping it around. And we can see that it too is about 10 inches around, which is weird because that was the same length as the book. So we're going to write the tool that we would use is a measuring tape. And it was also 10 inches long. So far we have used a ruler to measure the length of the book, and we have used a measuring tape to measure the distance around a cup. All right, we're going to go ahead and flip to page 584. If you weren't done with that page, you can go ahead and hit the pause button. Same instructions on the back side. We're going to choose the best tool for measuring this real object. Then we're going to measure and record the distance or the length. So the length of a chalkboard. We don't have a chalkboard, so we're going to use our makeshift whiteboard across. So would we use, to measure across this whiteboard, would we use a ruler, a yardstick, or a measuring tape? And I want you to think more of like our whiteboard at school. It's a little bit longer. Very good. We would use the yardstick. Go ahead and write in yardstick. And if we were pretending that my wrapping paper is the same distance as the yardstick because I don't have one, it is about 1 yardstick long. So we would say it's about 1 yard. And 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So we could say that it is 1 yard long. Or if we were using the ruler, we could say 3 feet long. The next one is the length of a marker. So taking a look at this marker right here, it's a silly scent. I know you boys and girls love our silly scents. Would we use the ruler, the yardstick, or a measuring tape? Good. We would definitely use a ruler for this one. So if I measured it, I'm starting at the 0 and I'm going across, and I can see it ends right about at the 7 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and write in here that we would use a ruler and that it is 7 inches long. All right, a globe. We don't have a globe, so what I'm going to use that's kind of comparable to it is this bucket. Ooh, not that bucket. This bucket, it has O'Reilly's like zooms and squishies and stuff in there. So they want to know the distance around this bucket. So we're not just measuring across, we have to measure all the way around it. So what would we use? Would we use the yardstick, the ruler, or the measuring tape? Good, we would use the measuring tape. Let me back this up so you can see. So here would be the bucket. I'm going to pull out the measuring tape. I'm going to wrap the measuring tape around there. And we can see it is about right here, which is 35 inches around. So for a globe, we had to use a bucket instead, but same type of thing. We would use that measuring tape. And it was about 35 inches around. And finally, the length of a classroom wall. So if we were going to measure like the corner all the way down to that corner of our playroom, which is turned into my classroom, would we use a ruler, a measuring tape, or a yardstick? A little tricky. So I would say that you could use a yardstick, but you could also use the measuring tapes, because sometimes the measuring tape goes really far, so you wouldn't have to keep picking it up and pulling it up. So if you put down a yardstick or a ruler, or a yardstick or a measuring tape, I would be okay with that. So I'm going to go ahead and write down a yardstick, and I actually put the yardstick down, and I noticed that my yardstick, when I put it down, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It was about 7 yardsticks, so about 7 yards. Some of you that play football might be familiar with yards because you have to get 10 yards to get a first down. So those of you that are football fans, if you're trying to visualize how big a yard is, think about a football field and think about a first down. You have to get through the 10 yards. So each little line on a football field is 1 yard, so that helps you. A whole football field is 100 yards. And that helps you kind of visualize what's going on there. All right, go ahead and flip your page. It says Rachel wants to measure the length of a sidewalk. Should she use an inch ruler or should she use a yardstick? Okay, would we want to go down a sidewalk with 1 ruler and keep measuring all the way down with 1 ruler? Or would we want to use a bigger tool like a yardstick where it would be less times having to move it down? A yardstick, very good. So go ahead, she should use a yardstick. So go ahead and write in yardstick. And this is also a math on the spot problem, so if you wanted to see a better visualization of that, go ahead and hit your phone, your iPad, iPod, and it'll pull up the explanation for that one. So she should use a yardstick because it'll be less times that she has to keep picking up her yardstick to measure because the tool is bigger. So because it is a bigger tool. Okay. All right, next one. What is an object that you would measure with a measuring tape? Explain why you would use this tool. So, thinking about something that we would use a measuring tape for. We want to think about something that like would go around. So think of something that like you couldn't just use a ruler because you have to actually like move it around an object. So what's something round that we could measure? I know if Maddox were here, he would choose a basketball. So the object I would choose is a basketball to measure. And to measure the distance around, I would have to use the measuring tape because it would have to bend around the object. Because it is round. And then finally, Jim measures the length of a picnic table with an inch ruler. Is Jim using the best tool for measuring? Explain. So I'm picturing a picnic table being pretty big, like a lot of my friends and family are sitting at it. Do you think an inch ruler would be the best way to measure it? I wouldn't think so. I would probably use a yardstick or a measuring tape because the ruler is too small. Okay. Now the ruler on that one is just too small. We would need a bigger tool to measure it. Okay, that was math lesson 8.8, and I went up to page 586. I'm going to pause this video and I'm going to show you how to do the homework pages and work through those with you. So I will see you in a couple minutes.